Welcome to Shaped by Faith with your host, Theresa Rowe. To find out more about Shaped by Faith and Theresa Rowe, please visit shapedbyfaith.com or visit the YouTube channel, Facebook, or Instagram. And now, here is Theresa Rowe.
Welcome to Shaped by Faith, where we shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. I'm your host, Theresa Rowe. I have a very special guest on my show today. His name is Bruce Francisco. He's appeared on over 100 national radio and television shows. His latest book, Thinking Beyond Habitual Thinking, Visionary Mind Power Series. I have it right here. For those who are on the podcast, here it is. Here's his picture. Here's his book. We're going to talk about that. It explores the integration of mind tools such as meditation, mindfulness, self-hypnosis, and the power of attraction. And his book aims to help readers understand and unleash the possibilities of their minds, opening doors to their God-given purpose. I love that. And through his seminars, shows, and writings, Bruce reveals the latent power of the mind, encouraging individuals to exercise their mental faculties to achieve greater control over their lives. In addition to his work and motivational speaking, Bruce is a pilot, which is a big deal. He's a surfer, accomplished builder, and he developed a unique property that was featured on HGTV. Bruce, when do you have time to do anything else?
That's the most asked question. And people sometimes ask me, so what do you do? And I go, I don't know where to start because I don't want to be talking about myself that much, really. But I had a unique path through life. I never really had a job, but no one ever gave me anything. And I worked hard. There's times I had nothing and I lived out of a car, walking up and down supermarket aisles to eat. And yet I kept I was going through college in Arizona. But I kept a good positive attitude and I worked through my obstacles. And I think what comes up with me with that is my 95-year-old mother. I remember I had no money. I was in Arizona. I had hepatitis. I drank some bad water in the canyons. And I go, Mom, I need some money. And she goes, you're out there. You got to figure it out. You always have a home to come to. And I thanked her for not robbing me to work through my struggles to find my excellence. And that's really one of my strong messages that I tell everybody is that the obstacles that we confront in life, we're meant to overcome. God gave us the ability to discern and make wise choices. And I think that's what we're supposed to do. I think of a guy walking down a path and he sees a little cocoon and he saw a little butterfly trying to struggle to get out. So he figured he'd help it out. He sliced it very carefully, but the butterfly fell to the ground. He died. And it needed that struggle to strengthen its wings to handle the new world. And that's really the message that we have to find our excellence. We're here to have an opportunity to overcome fear and doubt and worry and all those, to find prosperity, happiness, and joy, and work through our obstacles. That's one of my messages anyhow.
That is so good, and it's so true, Bruce. And, even when we were raising our children and sometimes you helped them out a lot. And then in the end, you're like, that didn't help them.
No.
That they need to find their way, and I loved the analogy you used with the butterfly. I mean, that's beautiful and how true that is. Okay, so you shared just a little bit about your background. Where are you and what influenced your approach to visionary thinking?
Well, I live in Westbrook, Connecticut, a quiet little New England town, and a lot of boats around here, and I see the water and I see birds in a little marsh right now. I'm looking at some ducks off in the distance. So I settled here. I lived in Arizona for 17 years. I came back here, and people always ask me what got me involved with, as you know, I'm a certified hypnotherapist and I do hypnosis events. And I'd have to say, when I was a little kid, I heard the statement that man only uses 5% of their mind potential. And as a little kid, I used to wonder, well, why are we only using 5% if there's 100% there? But after hypnotizing thousands of people, I began to realize that we're mostly asleep, 95% asleep to our greatest potential. And so people always ask me, like when I first started doing hypnosis, people used to go, "Oh, that's the tool of the devil." And I don't think people understand what hypnosis is. It is a tool that the devil uses to influence their minds.
Hmm.
And so I'm not really hypnotizing anyone. I'm just dehypnotizing them and helping them reconnect to this childlike freedom that they forgot about before they got caught up in the world. So the end result is I give them some very positive suggestions at the end, which are life-changing. So when I first saw a hypnotist, I used to think, oh, if hypnosis can make people do funny things, why not help them do amazing things? But as I worked through all the experiences I had with hypnosis, I began to really seek. And I'm actually reading the Bible. I'm just past Proverbs right now. And I began to see the relationship to what Jesus' messages and what I'm doing. And so I
Hmm.
try to bring a different light. I'm trying to bring a different light to understanding the message of Jesus and within what I do.
Right. And Bruce, God definitely placed that within you, and it's a gifting. And you're right. Some people look at it like, oh my gosh, that's new age thinking, that's a tool of the devil. It how you're using it to help people, that's a totally different approach. We can say that with anything that we do. I can say that with exercise. It could be used for good, bad, or it's all about me. Are we going to spend this and use it for God's glory? um was there a specific moment in your life, Bruce, when God like opened up your eyes to think beyond your own limitations? Because I think you think way out of the box and you go big, and I love that about you. You're like, no limitations here. I'm gonna do this. And even reading your book, I mean, that's some of your, you write about that. So
Right.
I'm just kind of paraphrasing.
Which leads me to overcoming obstacles.
Hmm.
I I end up always, because I never really had a job. I'm always thinking ahead, and I'm always because I could go into a lot of tangents here. I don't want to go into a lot of tangents that are way off track here. But I'd have to say it's a process of awakening. And I always tell people, you have until you die to wake up.
Hmm.
And so I'm not like I said, I'm not hypnotizing them, I'm dehypnotizing them. See, when you're hypnotized, you don't know you're hypnotized. And so a little bit of meaning of when we say we're born in sin,
Hmm.
well, yes, in a way, we're in a trance. And when we're creatures of habit. When we're little children, we have no habits. We're like these beautiful little things. You look at a flower and you go, oh, but you saw the unlimited possibilities.
Hmm.
And but then as a little child, they began to mimic the brothers and sisters and the parents, and eventually it has all these habits of thinking to define who you think you are, good or bad. So the idea is we may get off track, and I help people understand what it means to get on track by opening up their mind to all these possibilities, by understanding hypnosis and what it is, and understanding Jesus, because Jesus, through his sacrifice, opened up our minds to a possibility that will bring us closer to God. And
Hmm.
I think that's the same thing going on, is that we get so caught up in the world. Like you said, live in the world, but don't be of it. There's a lot of messages there that ring through time. And so when you're hypnotized, you don't know you're hypnotized. And so, but when you awaken, you begin to open your mind up, and all of a sudden, you see everything around you. You become aware, like a child again. And
Yes.
it's kind of interesting. I'm trying to summarize it in a quick.
No, it reminds me of, a personal salvation experience. Like, you could have been in a slumber, you weren't aware of what was going on. And I know when I turned my life over to Christ, even the colors outside looked more vivid to me. I'm like, wow, are those colors really that bright? Or my mindset started to shift, and I started to think about those things that were uplifting and those things that were encouraging and faithful. No one made me do that. It was just, there was a shift in my mindset. And I really think about Romans 12 too, where it says, don't be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And then you'll know Christ's perfect will for your life. I really, as you were talking, I was really thinking strongly about that verse and how it is so true. So I totally understand what you're saying. I was reading, I was just kind of reviewing chapter 29, like the power of faith. I'm attracted to the power of faith. And I love what you say in here and how you explain it, you know, the action part of it, the visualization. So what led you to write this book, and share anything you want about this book, okay?
Well, as I was doing these hypnosis, don't forget, I started doing these, I got certified as a hypnotherapist in the early 90s, and then late 90s, I remember seeing a hypnotist on stage, and I go, wow, if I could learn how to do that, I could do an amazing experience and do my own show to bring people to a better understanding of faith.
Mhm.
So I started doing these shows, and it was more like a Las Vegas comedy show, but then I realized I was inspiring people, and I became more of a motivational comedy. And then over the years of doing these shows, I began to write down these insights that I was having. And a lot of times I would be going, why am I the only person that sees this the way I'm seeing it? Because I'm actually seeing how easy someone might fall into a trance. And so when someone falls into a trance, they don't even know it. It's kind of like you have a nice day, everything feels really good, and all of a sudden you have anxiety. And where'd that come from? You reacted to something, literally were hypnotized from it. It took you away from uh, your connection to God, really. And so you try to seek to get that back. And like I always say, there's two realities, the truth of your reality and your perception of it. And to discern between those two will help anyone be guided on the path that is hard for them. I wrote the book because, and the first one, meditation, mindfulness, self-hypnosis, power of attraction. I wanted people to understand their mind so they could begin to notice the subtle things that maybe were right in front of them that they never realized that would help them change the way to look at things. And when they begin to shift their perception, they begin to wake up. And so I really help people just kind of reconnect and change the way, open up to the possibility they never thought about. And usually I've seen life changes. Like a lady, I did an event. Um, she called me back 8 months after, an HVAC company. And she says, we want you back. And I go, well, what would you like me to talk about this time? She goes, anything you want. And I go, really? Well, and then I recognize her. I go, I hypnotized you, didn't I? She goes, absolutely. See, when I do the shows at the end, I give them some very positive suggestion to open up their minds. And I said, how'd it go for you? She goes, everything changed. I walk every day. I changed the way I eat. I sleep good at night. I lost 65 pounds
Oh
in
my.
8 months. It was crazy. And I went and
Wow.
did the event. I couldn't believe it, different person. And all I said to her is, I just planted a seed. You watered it. And,
Mm,
and, and I think everyone has that potential to shift and realign themselves, follow your heart, not your pain,
yeah.
and knowing the difference and discerning. And that's pretty much what I show. But the meditation is the foundation of that. And people always say, what's meditation? Some people go, I'm scared of it. And I go, well, meditation is like prayer, but you have to clear the palette of your mind, to clear all the noise. And I always say meditation lets you know the difference. Mindfulness lets you live the difference.
Mhm.
And once you understand how to split-second recognition, like you teach people to understand how important it is to exercise,
Mm.
but the greatest muscle of all is the mind. And a weak mind reacts like a leaf in the wind, all over the place with the wind. But when you learn to have that split-second recognition, it's kind of like virus software for your mind. Back in the 80s, we had computers, 90s maybe. It didn't just did word processing, data entry. But then what happened is we connected it to the internet. Now one day you go, something's wrong with my computer. Oh, I got a virus. How did that sneak in there? That's like getting anxiety. Virus software will go ding, ding, ding. Do you want that in your mind? And you get the choice that you didn't know you ever had. And so you could begin to put a filter around what you want in your mind that influences you. And once you have that ability to discern that way, which meditation strengthens the muscle of your mind to be able to do that,
Mhm.
the more you can walk through your experiences rather than your experiences walking through you, creating anxiety. That's like getting a virus.
You know, the Bible, I mean, it speaks of meditating so many times in the Word. It speaks about, meditating on the Word of God. And there are so many things to meditate on when we just think about that in His Word. As you were speaking, you were talking about anxiety, and I think fear. I think a lot of times fear robs us of everything that God created us to be. If someone, Bruce, if someone is out there and they're dealing with, okay, they're listening, they're like, okay, all right, I'm hearing what he's saying, but can you explain how this is going to help me? My life is in shambles. I'm anxious. I'm fearful. What can they do, Bruce? They need
Seek,
your book.
okay, seek. No, well, it's not in the book, not in anything. The book can lead you there. It's like not in
Yeah.
the Bible, but the Bible can lead you there.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a little thinking. Okay, put your hand out.
Do
Just
what?
put
Put
your
my
hand out. It's
hand
like
up.
one hand, one hand. All right, and this is something, if you catch yourself kind of caught up, but I just want to show you something. Just for a moment, you don't need to think of anything. And you can rest your hand like this, wouldn't matter.
Okay.
And just notice the little sounds you hear in the room. Your computer, maybe. Just listen. I know you hear me. And notice your hand begins to tingle. Don't think about it though. And just listen. And all of a sudden, you hear little sounds in a room. You feel the blood flowing through your fingers, and your hand begins to tingle. And then once you're in a thought, none of that's happening. Bring your attention back to your hand again. Now your mind just got a little quiet. And that will this the truth of reality is right now, wherever you are right now, when your hand's tingling, you hear the sounds in the room, that's the truth. But once you're in a thought, you're an interpretation of reality, which is something that I help people understand they have more control of than they know. And that's the simplistic view of it.
Mm-hmm. I tell my fitness students to be present in the moment. I'm like, I can tell if you're out of this room. I can just see your body language. I can tell you're already in your car. You're
Yeah,
driving away. So I need you to come back in this room and be present because God has something for you, during this moment. I don't know what it is, but you need to be present. And I remind myself of that. Don't jump ahead. Don't try and planning is fine, but be present
we're
and
present. Yeah,
feel and
live life,
hear. Yeah.
do your thing, but when it's time to jump to attention, just be able to do that because you've practiced that stillness with God, really.
Mm-hmm.
Enough to
Mm-hmm.
fill the found. That's why your daily bread. Take a little time. And I think what's interesting is with your exercise routines that you show people, I haven't watched a lot of it, but I realize they go, while you're doing it, because once you're exercising, you're tuned to your body, and yet you give nice prayer along with it, which is good affirmations that you're more able to receive. So it's kind of a good time it's like your daily bread, a little exercise, something, and tries to tell people like, put it off, but you do it anyhow. You're
Mm-hmm.
defying all those negative thoughts by doing something that you know is good for you. And then while you're doing it, you're getting your daily bread of thoughts and proverbs and messages which ring through time from Jesus.
Yes. It places him at the center instead of our focus on how you look, or it really opens up your mind and your heart to him. And so I always tell my students, move in his strength, not in your strength.
Yeah.
Our strength is limited. So move in his strength, and you have to think about that. So you have to visualize that you are moving in his strength. So
Jump to faith.
yes, yes. How can believers use visionary thinking to strengthen the relationship with God?
Well, during the time of quietness, prayer, quiet your mind first and create good solid visions, because if you don't do it, someone else is going to put their other thoughts into your head. So
Mm-hmm.
self-hypnosis is kind of like prayer in a way. You're reaffirming a commitment to express God in a good way, be a conduit of God. Like I always say, when we go, you see a little bird or flower, and you go, oh, everyone does that. They go, oh, because it's so pure and innocent. You see something that you forgot in yourself, but just for a moment, it's like going home. But I
Mm-hmm.
say, why not reconnect to that yourself, and be live let your life be an awe experience. And then in that way, it will inspire other people also, because we need to spread.
Yes.
Otherwise, the other way, the darkness will come in. So be the light of the world rather than a conduit of darkness.
That's good. Bruce, let me ask you, how can someone discern if a vision they have is from God or just their own desires?
Well, there's a few ways. I think of, I always call the power of pain. If you touch a stove, take your hand away right away, because there's something that gives you a message that if you keep your hand there, you're going to burn your hand off. So we have something built in to protect ourselves. But I always think of painful thoughts that create anxiety.
Hmm.
And so if you have a painful thought, that's when I help people understand to use that discernment right away to, wait a minute, I could change the way I look at this.
Mhm.
And once you understand you could change the way you look at it, then you begin to open opportunities. Like right now, I go, what do you see? Go ahead. I'm asking you, what do you
Your
see?
hand.
No, but I didn't ask you to look at my hand. The point is, we're so caught up in the world that the point is, we forget to see all the things behind me and all around me.
Mhm.
And so if there's a point of of decision, perhaps, because that our decisions have a big impact going forward. So choose wisely whatever you choose. So I would say, if you're uncertain about it, you want to be able to correct yourself. So if you make a decision, then I was on Australia once, and I met Dennis Conner. He won the America Cup sail race, and he happened to be at a resort I was at, and he's ate dinner at my plate every night at the same dinner table. And he said to me his strategy of winning was, of course, he wanted to win the race, and of course, we want to do the right thing in life. But his strategy was to not necessarily have a specific plan, but to be adaptable, to begin to constantly, through sifting and sorting, constantly um, be able to be flexible to adapt to the ever-changing conditions as he proceeded through the race, which ultimately helped him win. But that's what I say about life. The more you're able to adapt from the patterns of thinking, like hence thinking beyond habitual thinking, the more we're able to adapt to the ever-changing conditions that are confronting, to really, so you're going to make a little maybe wrong decisions here and there, but be astute enough to take a step back and go, wait a minute, I could change what I'm doing. And the more you're able to be flexible that way, the more you're going to navigate through the craziest obstacles of life. And as you've discovered, and I've discovered, and probably many of your listeners have discovered, that process ultimately is what has worked for them. And so that's just my advice on that. I could go deeper, but I know we have a short amount.
No, that's great. And Bruce, I've always told myself it's okay to try something and fail at it. That's okay. Learn from that. Like if that thing didn't work out,
Exactly.
let's
Exactly.
get up, let's go to the next thing. So I think it's a learning process and a learning curve along the way. I'm a big thinker. Let's just think big. And what's the worst thing that could happen? It doesn't happen. Oh, well, I've always kind of thought I had that in my mindset since I was a little girl. I know many people struggle with fear or doubt, especially when they're pursuing their God-given vision or destiny in life. And it kind of keeps them stuck in place.
And
So
even though you may change, like they always say, you have a plan, but God laughs at your plans.
that's true.
It ends up being a little different than you had planned, but you got to keep moving ahead and be
Yeah.
open to, wait a minute, that's what was supposed to happen, and I was struggling to get this to happen. So it's sifting and sorting through the obstacles that we confront, whatever it is.
Now, I know you're working on another book and I know you're writing. So do you want to speak into that or give us a little sneak
Yeah,
peek what's
I
next?
I wrote this book just before the pandemic, but when the pandemic hit, it opened my mind to a lot of things. And what I saw, what I was doing, hypnotizing people on a micro level, I saw it on a macro level. I looked around and I go, and I realized that literally everyone's hypnotized. We don't call it that. And except the little child you see, he's like just beautiful and innocent in his way. And I saw that people so I started writing again a lot. And next thing you know, I had 300 pages. I said, I don't want a long book. No one reads anymore. So I'm making 3 small books under the premise, the mass hypnotic induction of the world. The first book, which kind of is the message of Jesus in a way people can understand based on my experiences of what I see and what I talk about. The second book's about uh, kind of like what the media does to the minds of people, mass propaganda,
Mm.
and how it literally hypnotizes people, especially the cell phone, but it go on and on with that. And then
Right.
the third book is ultimately learning how to live free in an unfree world. And pretty much just to walk through your experiences with God, really. And that's what it comes down to.
When can we expect those to come out, Bruce?
Well, the first book's going to be the message of Jesus in a way people can understand.
Mhm.
And I know I told you, I don't know if we have much time, but I could tell you about a dream I had, which was really interesting.
We've got like 1 minute.
Uh,
I
maybe
know.
another time. But I had a dream that was a lot of dreams that were very inspiring to me and kind of kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Confirmed that I was on a good path
Mm.
and about being more message of Jesus within my writings.
And I think that's beautiful. And God's going to lead you each step of the way because you're helping people and you're helping them with their mindset. And like you said, I mean, that's the mindset. That's where everything begins right there in the mind. And then it goes into the heart. Bruce, I do want to have you come on again. And I would love to hear more when your 3 books come out. Come on back on and explain your dreams. But our time is out and I apologize. But where can we purchase your book if we want to copy the one you wrote?
I also have within the book, you'll see a link to a free meditation thing I mentioned. You can actually go to my wife's skincare line website, which is Profit Skincare, PROPHET skincare.com. And where the book section is, that's where we sell it. And there's also a meditation CD there, but I also offer a free one within the book.
Okay, thank you so much, Bruce. And I love your wife, Kelly. I've had her on and I love her skincare. I'm using it right now. But
Me
thank
too.
you. And
Thank
thank
you.
you. Yeah, and thank you for listening. I'm Theresa Rowe. Everyone have a blessed day. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Shaped by Faith with Theresa Rowe. Remember to visit shapedbyfaith.com to find out more about workouts, the TV show, podcasts, blogs, Shaped by Faith products, and much more.